It's just past midnight in rural Minnesota. A 19-year-old Brandon Swanson is stranded after crashing his car into a roadside ditch. Uninjured, he calls his parents for help, telling them he's near a familiar town. But 47 minutes later, mid-sentence, he blurts, "Oh shit," and vanishes. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't troubled. He didn't vanish on purpose. But the mystery remains. You won't soon forget this story. Welcome to True Crime with Stark Tales, the channel where we dive deep into the most unsettling cases. We're on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers, and every single one helps keep these stories alive. If you enjoy true crime content like this, hit subscribe and join the community. Brandon Swanson, born January 30th, 1989. He grew up with his parents, Annette and Brian. Friends described him as a good listener. He wasn't a big partier, but he was social. His passion was renewable energy, and he dreamed of building a career that mattered. He had plans, a future, and people he cared about deeply. That's why his disappearance wasn't just a missing person case. It was out of character, unbelievable, and utterly devastating. It was just a regular Wednesday night. May 13th, 2008. Classes had wrapped up at Minnesota West Community and Technical College in Canby, and like a lot of college kids, Brandon decided to celebrate. He went to a couple of gatherings. Nothing wild, just hanging out, talking, maybe a few drinks. By all accounts, Brandon was his usual self, friendly, talkative, independent. Sometime just before midnight, Brandon got in his car, a Chevrolet Lumina, to make the drive back to his hometown of Marshall, Minnesota. It should have been about a 30-minute drive, straightforward, but he never made it home. At about 2 a.m. on May 14th, 2008, Brandon called his parents from his cell phone. He said he'd driven off the road, but he was okay. His car was just stuck. Could they come get him? They rushed out, Dad calling, "Which way are you walking?" Mom honking the horn, but they didn't find him. He told them he could see lights. He thought he was near Lynn. They tried to guide him. Then 47 minutes into the call, he stopped mid-sentence, said, "Oh shit," and he's gone. Now this is where things start to get strange, because when Brandon called his parents, he insisted he was near Lynn, which is south of Marshall, but his phone records told a different story. They placed him near Taunton, 25 miles away, in the opposite direction. That's where they found his car in a ditch, doors open, keys nowhere to be seen. Why would Brandon think he was 25 miles away from where he really was? Was it dark and confusing? Was he disoriented? Or was something else going on? The call with his parents lasted 47 minutes. Brandon told them he wasn't hurt. He laughed a little. He said he'd just walked toward the town lights while they drove to meet him. His dad, Brian, stayed on the phone, talking him through it. His mom, Annette, drove, honking the horn occasionally so Brandon could listen for it, but he never heard it. Instead, Brandon described passing fences, fields, even what sounded like water. His dad heard him crunching over gravel, stumbling a little now and then, but still calm. And then suddenly, mid-sentence, Brandon said, "Oh shit." The line went silent. Brian thought maybe the call dropped. He tried calling back, over and over, but Brandon never picked up again. By morning, Annette and Brian were frantic. They called the police to report Brandon missing, but what they heard back shocked them. Officers said Brandon was an adult, 19 years old. He had the right to disappear if he wanted to. Maybe he just didn't feel like coming home. His parents knew better. Brandon wasn't the type to vanish. And besides, he had literally disappeared mid-conversation with his dad. Still, the police hesitated. Hours ticked by before they finally joined the search. When deputies finally checked Brandon's cell records, they realized the truth. His last call had pinged off a tower near Taunton, not Lynn, where Brandon thought he was. They drove to the area, and there it was, Brandon's Chevy Lumina, stuck nose down in a ditch. The car was empty. No sign of Brandon. No keys. And here's the kicker. The car wasn't damaged. He hadn't crashed at high speed. It was just gently off the road, wheels too deep to drive out. Brandon could have walked away without a scratch, which of course he did. Bloodhounds were brought in to trace Brandon's scent. The trail they followed lined up almost exactly with what Brandon had described to his dad on the phone. From the car, the dogs led searchers through fields, down gravel roads, across fences, past an abandoned farmyard. The trail went on for nearly 3 miles, ending at the Yellow Medicine River. Searchers scoured the riverbanks. They brought in boats, divers, nothing. But here's what really haunts investigators. The dogs didn't just lose the trail at the water. They picked it up again on the other side. That suggested Brandon may have crossed the river. If that's true, where did he go after? And if he drowned, why has his body never been found? From the very beginning, theories exploded. Everyone had a different idea about what happened to Brandon. One theory, he drowned in the Yellow Medicine River. It was dark, the water was moving fast, and it was mid-May, cold enough to disorient him in seconds. Another theory, Brandon made it across the river but succumbed to hypothermia as he kept walking through wet fields. Rural Minnesota can get down near freezing at night, and Brandon was only wearing jeans and a t-shirt. And then there were the darker theories. Maybe Brandon stumbled onto something or someone he wasn't supposed to. Could foul play have been involved? The problem is, there's no evidence for any of it. No clothing, no phone, no footprints, nothing. For weeks, searchers covered more than 100 square miles of farmland. Volunteers walked shoulder to shoulder. Helicopters scanned overhead. The river was dragged again and again, but every effort came up empty. Brandon seemed to have vanished into thin air. And that's when the case started to shift from search and rescue to mystery. In 2009, just 1 year after Brandon's disappearance, Minnesota passed a new law in his name, Brandon's Law. It requires police to immediately open investigations for missing adults if they're in danger. No more brushing families off with, they have the right to go missing. The law has since helped countless families in similar situations. It's one of Brandon's lasting legacies. But for his parents, it's not enough. They still don't have answers. Not about the night Brandon vanished, not about that chilling last call, and not about why, after nearly 17 years, there's still no trace of him. Search and rescue teams often study what's called lost person behavior. It's the science of how people move, think, and act when they're disoriented or stranded. Statistically, young men in rural areas often do the same things. They keep moving forward, often in straight lines, convinced they're heading towards safety. They sometimes misjudge distance and direction, especially in total darkness. Could Brandon's confusion about his location, saying he was near Lind when his phone proved he was near Taunton, fit this pattern? Experts think it's possible. Out in the dark, with no clear landmarks, even someone familiar with the area could mistake where they were. The words that echo in this case, the final words his dad heard before the line went dead, were, "Oh shit." What did Brandon see in that moment? Some believe he slipped down an embankment. Maybe he tripped and dropped the phone into water. Maybe he suddenly saw the river rushing in front of him. Others think he spotted someone, or something, unexpected. The tone of those two words matters. His dad remembers it as startled, like someone who just realized something had gone wrong. But without more, we can only guess. And those two words remain the last piece of Brandon's voice his parents ever heard. Let's dig deeper into the river theory, the one most investigators lean toward. The Yellow Medicine River isn't huge, but it can be dangerous. In mid-May, snowmelt and spring rains often raise the water level. Currents can be strong, banks slippery. If Brandon tried to cross, it's possible he slipped, hit his head, or was swept under. But here's the problem. Searches of the river turned up nothing. No clothing, no body, no trace. Even years later, when water levels dropped and the riverbed was scanned again, searchers found nothing. Bodies don't just vanish in rivers. They may move downstream, they may become lodged, but usually they're found. So the question is, if Brandon drowned, why hasn't anyone seen a sign of him in all these years? Another strong theory is hypothermia. The night Brandon vanished, temperatures dipped into the low 40s. If he had crossed the river, he would have been soaked in cold water. Walking for miles afterward could have been impossible. When hypothermia sets in, people don't think clearly. They wander in circles, make poor decisions, even strip off clothing in what's called paradoxical undressing. Could Brandon have collapsed somewhere in the fields or woods, hidden by crops or brush? Searchers say it's possible, but again, despite miles of shoulder-to-shoulder searches, nothing was found. And that makes this theory just as frustrating as the river theory. Then there's the darker possibility, foul play. What if Brandon crossed paths with someone out there? Some speculate he could have flagged down a passing vehicle, hoping for help, and encountered the wrong person. Rural areas are sparse, but truckers, farmers, or night drivers pass through. But again, there's no evidence. No reports of strangers in the area, no witnesses, no signs of a struggle. Investigators lean away from foul play. Yet some can't let go of the possibility. After all, Brandon's final words could mean he saw something, or someone, that made him panic. Was he startled by water, or by someone else? We may never know. Here's another mystery, the gap in Brandon's timeline. He left the party just before midnight, but he didn't call his parents until nearly 2 a.m. So what happened in those 2 hours? Did he take a wrong turn and drive around in circles? Did he stop somewhere? Was he with someone? That missing time has never been explained, and it leaves a hole in the story that might never be filled. So where does the trail end? For investigators, it ends at the Yellow Medicine River. For his parents, it ends at a phone call cut short. For the community, it ends with questions, rumors, and hope. And for Brandon, no one knows. Every missing persons case raises the same question. Did they walk away on purpose? But almost everyone agrees. That wasn't Brandon. He had no history of running off, no fights with his parents, no debts, no secret life. He was mid-conversation with his dad when he vanished. Not exactly the moment you choose to stage a disappearance. And if Brandon wanted to disappear, he would have needed money, transportation, and planning. He had none of that. So this theory, the idea that he left voluntarily, just doesn't hold weight. The FBI released a new age-progressed images, showing what Brandon might look like in his 30s. Brandon's case remains open. 17 years later, no one can say for sure whether he's alive or dead. His friends and family just want one thing: answers. What do you think happened to Brandon Swanson? Leave your theories, ideas, and thoughts in the comments below. Let me know if you like this video and if you want more content like this. I enjoy making videos like this. And if you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of somewhere, good luck, that's all I can say. Watch out for our next episode. Bye.